Right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our Commission on Ethics meeting to order at this time. First, we'll do roll call. Chair Walling here, Vice Chair Duffrin.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Oscarson.
Here.
Commissioner Towler.
Here.
Commissioner Yin.
Present.
Commissioner Grunwald. Here. And Commissioner Lowry.
Here.
And for staff, we have Commission Counsel Chase.
Here.
Executive Director Armstrong.
Here.
Associate Counsel Bassett.
Here.
Executive Assistant Pedroza.
Here.
And Senior Legal Researcher Hayden, I thought.
Here.
Okay. At this time, we will go and do the Pledge of Allegiance. We actually have the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right now, we will open it up for public comment. Executive Director Armstrong, have you received any public comment?
We have not received any written public comment, Chair.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public present on Zoom?
We do, but they have not indicated their presence.
All right. All right, we will go ahead and close public comment, and at this time, we will go and approve the March 16th, 2022 minutes. Commissioners Towler and Yin were excused from the meeting, and Commissioner Sheets was absent. Therefore, these commissioners may not participate in the approval of the minutes. All the other commissioners that were present can participate. Are there any additions or changes to the minutes as read? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, right, motion carries. Next item is discussion and approval of the proposed stipulation concerning ethics complaint number 20-060C, Hagan, former Human Resources Director for the Southern Nevada Health District. I would like to call the item and indicate for the record that Ms. Hagan waived the review panel proceedings, so all commissioners may participate on this item. I would like to ask the attorneys and the parties to identify themselves for the record.
Associate Counsel Elizabeth Bassett on behalf of the Executive Director.
Okay.
Good morning, this is Alicia Hagerman on behalf of Amy Hagan.
Okay, thank you. I would like to have a presentation from Associate Counsel Bassett at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, this is Elizabeth Bassett, Associate Counsel for the Commission. The proposed agreement before you today recommends the terms of a stipulated agreement in ethics complaint number 20-060C concerning Amy Hagan, the former Human Resources Director for the Southern Nevada Health District. The complaint in this matter was filed by Joseph P. Iser. He was the former Chief Health Officer of the Health District, and he served in that position until he resigned in January of 2020. So Ms. Hagan, as you noted, has waived her right to a review panel in this matter and has agreed to the proposed stipulated agreement that's before you today for your requested approval. The documents and the interviews obtained during the course of the investigation in this matter show that Ms. Hagan, as the Director of Human Resources, was responsible for managing the health district's recruitment process for filling vacant positions. The Director of Administration for the Health District resigned his position in June 2019, and recruitment was open to fill that position. Ms. Hagan was one of the members of that recruitment committee hired to fill a new position, and she reviewed the resumes and screened applicants for that position. She also participated in the only 2 interviews of candidates for that position that took place. Between the interviews of potential candidates, Ms. Hagan did submit her own application for that position and announced her intention to apply for the position to her immediate supervisor simultaneous with submitting her application. And that immediate supervisor was Dr. Iser. She was removed from the interview process Eventually, Ms. Hagan withdrew her application and returned to lead the recruitment process after she was asked to do so by some of her, several of her employees when it was brought to her attention that requester had been engaged in some behavior that they were concerned about. She then again entered the recruitment process after someone else was put into the position of leading the process. Eventually, the position was never actually filled. Ms. Hagan, along with several other employees, eventually filed a discrimination complaint against requester. That was upheld. He was found to have discriminated against herself, several other employees. Thereafter, Dr. Heiser filed this ethics complaint against Ms. Hagan. And eventually Dr. Heiser resigned. So, and Ms. Hagan no longer works at the Southern Nevada Health District. The investigation also showed that there are a number of mitigating factors that support this stipulated agreement that we entered into. Well, the stipulated agreement that Ms. Hagan has never previously been the subject of any violations of the ethics law, that she has recognized that more steps could have been taken to prevent and avoid the conflicts in this matter, and that she did not receive any financial benefits as a result of her conduct because she never did in fact receive, she never was hired into the position. She recognized she would have benefited if she did, and she never was in fact hired into the position. She no longer works for the state and no longer works at the agency. The stipulated agreement calls for Ms. Hagan to do some ethics training. It calls for her to it monitors her that she must refamiliarize herself with the ethics law if she ever returns to public service. And it calls for her to be more aware of what her duties and requirements will be if she ever returns to a state agency, which she is not currently employed in at this time. I would like to note that through this process, Ms. Hagan and her attorney have been really cooperative with myself and with our investigator, Mr. Terry. They agreed to waive the review panel process, which is a significant sort of savings of our resources and our time, and also sort of, to me, a significant recognition of the fact that she is accepting that she did, violate these rules and not, hoping that we won't go through the review process and find a violation. And so I felt like that was and with the executive director agrees, a significant step toward accepting that there was a violation of the ethics law here, even though there were a number of sort of mitigating sort of circumstances in this situation that were, a lot of like whistleblower complaints and discrimination complaints that were filed here within the agency at the time, that made it kind of complicated and when we were negotiating this. But I did think that was sort of a significant accepting of the circumstances of her actions and what happened here. So given the information obtained in the investigation, the mitigating factors presented, the cooperation of the subject and her attorney, I believe the terms of the agreement presented today are appropriate. I believe the executive director feels the same. And we are recommending accepting and this stipulated agreement today. So I'd like to thank Ms. Hagan. I'd like to thank Ms. Hagerman, who has done a lot of work with me on this. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Ms. Hagerman, on behalf of your client, do you have any comments or additional items to add to Associate Counsel Bassett's presentation?
No, I think Ms. Bassett pretty much summed all of it up. And I just wanted to thank the commission for their time and their consideration in all of this. It was
Thank you.
like Ms. Bassett said, a complicated and matter. Thank you.
Fellow commissioners, I'll open it up for questions. Do you guys have any questions for Associate Counsel Bassett at this time? Commissioner Lowry.
Thank you. Thank you, counsel. Can you help me understand why the violation is framed as non-willful?
In our investigation, I think one of the facts that led the executive director and I to, in our negotiations with Ms. Hagan, frame it as non-willful. An important sort of fact in the interviews that was not just came from an interview with Ms. Hagan, but actually multiple people at the agency, was that Ms. Hagan wanted to apply for this position from day one. And Dr. Iser told her from when she initially expressed her interest and tried to apply, he told her, I will never hire you for this position. I don't care if you're qualified, I don't care. I won't hire you. So don't bother. And so she didn't. And then when she realized none of the other candidates were qualified, she went back and then put in her application, which is where she went wrong in the process and had the ethics violation. That's where she had the conflict, because she had been sitting into the process at that point. And so, well, that is clearly a violation and there's no way around it, that the actions of her supervisor and telling her, don't bother, I'm not going to consider you no matter what. And he essentially made that clear, and it was later upheld based on, in many respects, her gender. Sort of, push this towards, from a settlement perspective, and because she, and in consideration of her not making us move forward through the review panel process, taking responsibility up front, and in that, in the negotiation of a settlement, as opposed to making us go through a hearing, making us go through a review panel, is what we felt made this, made it worthwhile as a non-willful versus a willful.
So help me reconcile, if you're cooperative and you recognize that you violated the ethics law, where is the disconnect between admitting that it was a willful violation? And it wasn't an accident, it was done willfully, purposefully. And I have to separate into two buckets. The actions of employer or supervisor, those go in one bucket. She's the head of HR. If anyone in the organization should understand how the process of posting and hiring it is done, it's the head of HR. And so even if you wanted the position, and I think there's a big head scratcher that you position, and then how convenient that the people who apply aren't qualified. They're not qualified because you did the interviews and you decided that they're not qualified for the position that you really want. So did those people really get a fair shake? So what should have happened is the whole posting and that whole recruitment should have been set aside. I'm not saying she couldn't go for the position, but I'm saying as the head of HR, my expectation would be that if anyone understands how to do the procedure properly, especially if you have a supervisor who's not adhering to proper workplace ethics and behavior, then you're going to bring your A game. You're going to throw out that posting. You're going to repost it. You're not going to know the questions. You're not going to be involved in it at all, so that everyone who applies gets a fair shake. So while I very much appreciate her cooperation and see that as a mitigating factor, I struggle with the factor that it's considered non-willful. And I struggle with the factor that there was no fine imposed. And it also, one of the consequences is the next time she may be working for government or in human resources in government, she's going to be more aware of her duties. What does that mean? And what does that mean she actually has to do?
So there did go through a process of when she did put in her application, they did shut down the posting and they did repost.
Eventually.
Yes.
And she did.
Right.
She didn't do that. Somebody else did.
Well, because they pulled her out of the process completely when she posted.
Right, after 2 applicants had been disregarded or found not to be appropriate that she interviewed.
Well, no, she didn't. Well, and so maybe this is a fact of there not being enough facts here. She didn't interview them. She sat in on the interviews. Dr. Iser interviewed them and discarded them. He's the one who made the decision they weren't qualified, not her.
Okay, all right.
He's the one who found them not to be qualified.
Okay,
He was the decision maker in the terms of who was and wasn't qualified here, not her.
Okay.
So he was the decision maker about who was and who wasn't qualified, not Ms. Hagan.
Okay.
So that was his decision to make or not make. And he decided who got interviews and who didn't. And he had made the decision to interview only those two people out of all the people. And then he made the decision that he wasn't going to hire either of those 2 people either. So then she put in her application. And then, so she was facilitating the process, but not driving the process, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like she was just like the facilitator of the process, not the driver of the process.
She wasn't the decision maker.
No, she was not the decision maker. She had intimate knowledge of the process, i.e. she saw behind the curtain in terms of what he liked and didn't like about the people. But she was not rejecting candidates. He was rejecting candidates. And he was the one who had serially fired people out of this position. And she and other people we interviewed through this process said he had over and over and over again just fired people out of this position, and basically anyone being hired into this position was doomed. And the idea was that the thought process was, why not consolidate it with an existing position and save the agency money. And what has actually happened over the long run is this position has it doesn't exist anymore at the health district. And so that what she had actually approached him about prior to these interviews was, why don't we just get rid of this job and add it to my duties, because I end up doing it anyway. When you fire people, I do this job while you're looking for someone new. And he said, I'm never gonna do that. I'm never gonna let you have this job and add it to your resume. And so they interviewed people. She facilitated it, but he did the interviews. He rejected candidates. Like, they would bring the candidates to him, bring the resumes. He would explain why he didn't like certain people. And even though the name of the job was Director of Administration, there was the thing that ended up happening that kind of upheld the complaints against Dr. Iser was that he wasn't willing to hire anyone who actually had any an administration. He didn't like any of the candidates because they had an administration or HR background. So he wanted people with IT and business and finance backgrounds, which tended to be men. And so any of the candidates who had any HR or that type of background, he would reject and didn't even want to interview. So that's why he told her he would not let her fill the position. And so he wouldn't allow her, like he just told her, don't apply, I won't even let you try for the job. So she didn't apply and then went back. But when she then did say, I'm going to apply, they shut it down, and then they did repost and do those things. But then when she was taken out of the process, then there became a problem with the employees, and they went to her and asked her to please withdraw so she could come back into the process. Eventually, everyone filed discrimination complaints.
And I think this is Executive Director Armstrong. I think as I'm learning the ethics law in this new role, when I take a look at the statutes, we first find out if there's a violation and then make a determination whether it's willful or non-willful. And the statute gives us guidelines and mitigating factors to consider. And those are those that tend to lean towards the unwillful or the non-willful violation I think exist in this case. There's no prior history with Ms. Hagan in terms of violations of the ethics law. She actually didn't receive any financial benefit from anything that she did. And there was not a great expense to the investigation because, again, she's willing to accept this level of violation. And then you think about, okay, I believe, and I'll defer to Council Chase if I have this wrong, I don't think we can issue a fine or penalty if it's a non-willful violation. It's only if it's a willful violation situation, which it is interesting when we have these cases where a public officer or employee has left public office, because really the things like training are kind of the only mechanism we have for future compliance. The part that talks about understanding duties, that's an admonishment. Under the statute, the commission can admonish or reprimand individuals. And so that subsection H of that part of the stipulated agreement is this commission admonishing her that she needs to do that. It is not something that we would check in the compliance of the stipulated agreement.
And I can tell you in terms of, I know one of our standards is trying to treat similar violations and similar subjects similarly. And in going back and looking at the way we've handled when we have actually entered into stipulated agreements, and the commission can always change the way they want to do that, of course. But when I'm looking to try to present what I'm hoping you guys want, it is very common that is non-willful is what in the past has often been in this kind of a situation.
Commission Council Chase.
Thank you. Legally, when you're looking at a proposed stipulation, you do have a duty to treat it similar to other cases that have gone in the past, as Ms. Bassett indicated. However, each fact pattern is different. And you do have authority to look at the severity of the fact pattern and consider all the mitigation. Whether it's willful or non-willful is basically determined in application of the mitigating factors set forth in 281A 775. And those mitigating factors can basically be cooperation. It also can be whether or not any money was received as a result of the conduct in question. And there's other mitigating factors in there. And it has a catch-all that says anything else you reasonably believe would mitigate the conduct at issue. I think part of this case is the representation that the conduct should be mitigated by the conduct of Dr. Eisner. lessen the severity of the conduct. Because I think that the commission, based upon the comments, recognizes there is severity when a human resources director doesn't follow proper protocol. So that's what you will be weighing, is the severity of the conduct versus the mitigating factors. And if you weigh it one way, then as represented, it would be a non-willful violation. So those are how you look at stipulations when they come forward, and it's very fact-based. And if you have any questions legally as to what you're looking for, I'll be happy to help you.
Commissioner Oscarson.
Madam Chair, thank you for your presentation, Counselor. My question is pretty simple. You refer a lot in your presentation to what her supervisor said to her about not hiring her, and there were some gender things that you had mentioned in your presentation. Are those documented, or are those hearsay, or are those documented where other people actually heard them and were able to testify to the fact that he had said and made those comments and remarks?
Those were obtained over multiple interviews from multiple people, some of whom are still employed at the Southern Nevada Health District. Yeah, so they did not just come from the subject.
So so those were verified? Okay.
Correct.
That answers my question. Thank you.
As I understood some of the facts in this case, and correct me because I'm not like you guys on the first queue of interviewing and investigating the case, but I do believe, wasn't there an ancillary discrimination case that found Dr. Eisner had discriminated against Ms. Hagan?
Correct.
And so that finding was verifiable.
Yes,
Is that
correct.
prior? Sorry, Madam Chair.
Please proceed. Commissioner Oscarson.
Was that prior to the complaint he filed, or was that after?
He filed this complaint after he was found to have discriminated against her.
After she and a group of others had filed a complaint against him?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, from fellow commissioners? Yes.
I don't have,
Commissioner-
thank you, sorry, Jerome. I don't have any question, but I just would like to make a motion if I could.
Yes. If
So-
there's no other discussion, I don't see any.
I have quite a few questions, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Sorry,
Vice Chair Duffer.
sorry, Commissioner Yen.
I'm
Yeah.
settled on my position, so I thought I'd see if I could make the motion now.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I'm almost there. I just had a couple questions. So I want to be, for the record, I want to be clear about the specific ethics violation. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather here, so my mind might be a little bit clouded, but so the fact that this individual was in charge of the process to hire the candidate and then decided in midstream that she was going to go ahead and apply herself. Can you specifically tell me why that's an ethics violation?
Ms. Hagan had knowledge of the process. She got to sit in on interviews, so she knew what they were looking for. She she saw what questions were being asked. She had the inside knowledge of what was being sought. So she had knowledge that other people did not have access to. And then, she freely admitted in her interviews that this would have been a significant, it was a significant jump in pay for her if she would have received this job. This was a big jump. It would have been a big promotion. And so rather than applying from the beginning and then having nothing to do with the development of questions and seeing what the other candidates were saying and why certain candidates were being rejected, she waded through people's resumes, saw why they were selected or rejected, sat through several interviews, saw why people were rejected, and then applied for the job. And then there was a sort of a short period of time there where it wasn't totally shut down, and she put in her application, and it wasn't quite handled correctly before they completely shut it down and started over. But even with that starting over, you still have an inside knowledge of why certain people were rejected and what, people were
So,
looking for in the position.
At what point did Mr. Iser tell her that there was no way he would ever consider her for that position? Was it before, during, or after she applied?
It was when the person left the job before they started to look for a candidate for the job, she said to him, every time someone leaves this job, I do the job. So why don't you promote me into the job? And he said, don't even bother. I'm never gonna promote you into this job.
I find it
She felt like
interesting.
there was no
I
point.
find it interesting that she even applied when your supervisor tells you there's no way I would ever hire you for this, and she went ahead and applied. So it goes to the point that there's other issues going on here, and we're not seeing the whole picture. So my other question, and I'll be brief. So the process was completely shut down once she applied, and they reposted and re-interviewed people. Is that correct?
That started to happen, and then she pulled out of the process because of Mr. Iser's treatment of her staff. Without her there was a significant mistreatment of her staff, and they asked her to pull out and essentially protect them.
She never interviewed for this position.
She was never in any a significant contention for the position, is the way it sort of played out.
She didn't interview for it.
I don't believe she interviewed for it.
Commission Counsel Chase, do you want to
No.
make a comment?
Yeah, I want to make a comment in response to Commissioner Vice Chair Dufflin's question about why it would be a violation of the ethics law. Under 281A 400 subsection 5, if a public officer or employee through their public duties acquires information that's otherwise confidential and not available to the general public, they're prohibited from using that information to further their own pecuniary interests. So that's the rub. She basically obtained information about the internal questions and the recruitment process, and then that would have furthered her pecuniary interest in the process. She would have had a leg up. So that was that's the remaining violation that is the non-willful in the case, and the other ones are being dismissed for a lack of preponderance of evidence based upon the stipulation.
Yeah, I still struggle with that because it sounds like she never interviewed, and they shut the whole process down. So she never benefited from that. But the willful and non-willful struggle with as well. But I understand Commissioner Lowry's and the explanation that was given. I mean, I have a ton of other questions on this, but I think probably wasting everybody's time. So I'm done asking questions. I'd like to hear if anybody else has it. I'd like to hear Commissioner Yen's motion.
Yes.
Can I ask one quick question,
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Oscar.
Who would she have been reporting to had she been hired for that job?
It would have been Dr. Iser.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Yin, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair Wallen. I would move to approve the stipulation in case number 20-060C for Hagan, as presented, and to authorize Commission Counsel to finalize the legal form and process the stipulation.
Is there a second?
Second, Commissioner Grunwald.
All right, thank you. All right, no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Ms. Hagerman, for helping in this case, and your cooperation and your client's cooperation with the commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's time.
Right, next item, item 5, Executive Director's Agency Status Report. I'd like to call the item and ask Executive Director Armstrong for his presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This is Executive Director Armstrong. The materials are included in agenda item 5, attachments, my executive report. for April 2022. In terms of education and outreach, we continue to grow followers on our social media platforms. We had lots of training and technical assistance this month. So Clark County reports every month how many folks they have observed our video, and that was 76 in February. UMC, we did a WebEx training for the UMC. They wanted like a quick 10-minute, what is it, ethics commission for their board. So we got that completed on March 30th. And then did a roadshow in Boulder City and Nye County. Both jurisdictions have had cases in front of us recently, so it was good to go out there. In total, there were 65 participants, and it was good to have in-person training for the first time in a bit. And we have a training scheduled on May 3rd for Carson City, and then we've received inquiries from the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority, the Clark County Library System. This last week, we really got 4 or 5 different requests for training from organizations like the Inns of Court, the First Judicial District Bar Association, the Silver State Health Exchange. So folks are waking up to wanting ethics training. So we're trying to fit that into the schedule. Right now, I'm letting them know that we have potential training spots available in July or in June and July as we balance all the other ED duties with the training part. So. And we're targeting another Southern Nevada trip in June. I think that was a library we were really trying to focus on. So I think the big news in education outreach is that the governor's office has authorized the commission to receive American Rescue Plan Act funding to implement an online training management system where we can then put our content online. It can check for knowledge and understanding. And there's going to be a lot of functionality with that to not just have folks view a YouTube and tell us they viewed it, but to actually, see their quiz scores and have it recorded and be able to produce reports. And so the Administrative Services Division completed the work program paperwork for that yesterday. And I'm waiting to hear what the next steps are. I think it may be above the amount where we go to IFC to get the funding, but we'll have that budget authority established probably for next fiscal year, the one that starts on July 1st, maybe some spending in June, but to get an online training system up and going for the commission. In terms of our budget for fiscal year 22 and 23, our current biennium, we're on track to appropriately spend all the funding. We will have minor work programs in the training category and in our computer equipment category. And we have sufficient funds in other categories to transfer over. So there's no issues with our current budget. And then for the commission meeting status this month, we cleared our investigation backlog, but that means we have quite a number of adjudicatory hearings coming up. And so I wanted to just put it on the radar for commissioners, the cases we have coming up. So you can see those starting in August through May of next year. There are quite a number. Of course, as adjudicatory hearing dates approach, as in all legal matters, when you get closer to trial, sometimes the appetite for a negotiation and settlement resolution to the case increases. So I see that happening on a couple of these and maybe not some of the others, but that's just something for the commissioners. If you weren't on the panel for one of these cases, it's important to make that commission meeting so that you can be there for the adjudicatory hearing. And then I'll pause for a little bit on the website updates. So we've been taking a look at our current website. We've included what our current website front page looks like, and then some proposals for changes. And the state is getting a whole new website system sometime in the next 18 to 24 months. So in the meantime, there are some minor changes that we can make to our website. So I kind of want to toss it out for a little bit of discussion among the commissioners in thinking about, why do people visit our website? What we kind of determined is people either come to file a complaint. If they're a public officer, they might need to access training or file an acknowledgement or ask for an advisory opinion. And so we tried to simplify some of those things. So you can see kind of a proposal, but if there are some other things that commissioners would like to see in any changes, we can work to see if we can figure out how to do that within the current constraints of the software that we have.
Fellow commissioners, comments? Looked at the proposed website?
Chair, I'd like to make a comment about
Yes.
the training, if I may.
Sure.
So I had multiple members of the Nye County community give me feedback And I think the one that was stood out to me the most, and I hope you'll appreciate, I hope it's not out of bad form, but said to me, one of the members of one of those entities said to me that he was the most ethical he's ever been in his entire life after that training. So I found that rewarding, and I appreciate the efforts for you to travel and do these things. I know they're not easy. I know sometimes they're difficult questions, as I heard there were, but I also know that it was expressed to me by multiple people that you did a great job.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Hey, it's first roadshow, I think.
It was.
So we just got better and better from now on.
So back to the website,
Mhm.
I like your layout on it. I think it's clean, it's simple, people can find stuff there. Maybe this was just something that was an oversight, but under about, we really need to have our mission and our guiding principles there.
Yeah.
I just noticed that it wasn't on there, so that was just my suggestion there, but I like it, it's clean.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair Duffer.
So my only comment is, first thing you see is a big red line and it says file a complaint. I would rather, the first thing I'd rather see is requesting ethics training.
Okay.
Because I think that's kind of a negative thing when you open this thing up and you see a big red line and it says, whoa, file a complaint. It's like, I know we're all about filing complaints, but we're also all about training and all the other things that we do. So I don't necessarily think highlighting filing a complaint is necessarily good for our image. That's my comment.
Other comments?
Yeah. Is our mission statement mentioned in there? I didn't.
I just told them that we need to have it in there.
Yeah, in the about. Yeah, I took
You're
that.
gonna put it in the, you're gonna put the
Mission,
mission statement.
okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, our mission statement and
I
our.
heard you
guiding
say that, I
principles.
just wasn't sure where it was.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
about is where
about.
most people would
Yeah.
think to look for
It would be in
Yeah.
the about.
Okay,
that.
thank you. Sorry for.
I do like the picture of Reno though.
Yeah,
Should be.
I think we can do a carousel with 3 or 4 images of different spots throughout the state.
Rural Nevada.
Yeah.
Right.
Nevada County. Well,
Yes, indeed. There's some beautiful places in Pahrump. I invite you to come and visit.
yeah, that's good.
And then the last thing in the report is just some preview, because I know the commissioner talked about a logo before. And so there's kind of some homework for everybody between now and the next meeting to read about kind of the difference, like what is actual a full-blown branding for the agency versus just the logo will be part of that, but be thinking about, what, and it kind of goes, I think, to Vice Chair Dufferin's comment about the file a complaint, right? What do we want people to think about when they think about the Ethics Commission? And then that can help kind of guide the branding throughout. Right now we're using just kind of text on our social media to identify us, or the state seal. But developing something where they see whether it's a logo or they see letterhead or they see something and they know, hey, that's the Nevada Ethics Commission and I think X, Y, and Z. When I see that, that's where I think we want to head on that kind of that branding thing. So just take a look at those links if you get a chance, and we'll have some more stuff going forward on that front.
Yeah, I already did the homework on that. So I had tax season just ending, but I did it. But I appreciate you sending those links out. It was very, very informative. So if my fellow commissioners haven't done it already, I encourage you to do so. It informs us as to what are we talking about, branding, logos, identity.
And that is it for the executive director's report.
Any comments or questions for our executive director on his report? I don't have any. I just want to say thank you for the effort you've been making in getting this out there on social media. I saw LinkedIn got quite a few people that respond to your poll,
Yeah,
which is great. And people are starting to notice. And I think that because of your social outreach, I think that's why people are starting to say, hey, we want training. So good job. Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to approve the executive director's agency status report as presented? Is
So moved.
there a second?
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item is item number 6, presentation. Oh, sorry, I grabbed the wrong one. I don't have my glasses. Okay. So the next one after that is item number 6. Hang on, Tracy. Got my papers messed up. I got it. I think. Yeah, next item is, no, that's, sorry, guys. Thank you. All right, next item is item number 7, discussion, 6, sorry. Presentation by Commission Council on the restrictions set forth in NRS 281A, including incarcerated persons from filing ethics complaints. This is informational only, and we will not be voting on the item. I would like to ask Commission Council for her presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Tracy Chase, Commission Counsel, and I'm providing you a little background information of why this statutory provision actually exists in the ethics law. We have a preclusion from incarcerated persons filing complaint cases with the Ethics Commission. You have a full memorandum that provides you a pretty robust history on why it's there and why we're at the place we are now with the restriction. But I wanted to highlight some of the particulars. Interestingly, in researching the history of the Ethics Commission, it was created in the 1970s. However, you guys did not have authority years ago to actually impose fines or take a lot of the corrective action that you can today. So there's been a lot of growth in the powers and authority of the commission over the years. It wasn't until 1991 did the legislature actually provide you the sanction powers that you have similar to what you have today. In 1999, the restriction came into place that precluded incarcerated persons from filing ethics complaints. There are detailed minutes that I located in the legislative history of the statute that kind of provided us the reasons why that restriction is in place in the law. For example, I looked at those reasons in the testimony and I came up with 2 main reasons why I believe the statute is in the ethics law. One was the commission at the time was receiving many frivolous complaints from incarcerated persons, and it just didn't have jurisdiction over those. And they were related to inmates really seeking charges against correctional officers. What that did is it kind of clogged the system in the correctional facility systems where they have processes already available for them to mediate, to bring any type of ethics complaint or other matters through an appropriate process within the prison system or incarcerated system themselves. The Attorney General's office even has authority to mediate disputes within that system. So I felt there was a really robust system already in place that addressed ethics complaints that prisoners may have. In addition, my second reason that I thought the statute precludes incarcerated persons was that inmates are seeking to avoid those established procedures that are available to them in the correctional system and within the judiciary. The procedures, like I indicate, include specific grievance processes, mediation, and they have ethics complaint policies and procedures that relate to that. Both the legislature and the Nevada Department of Corrections requested, or basically this preclusion, and the legislature enacted it, as I indicated. I think it's because there was a duplication of authority across the board, and the authority to the commission really caused inconsistency in results, and it delayed resolving matters for those prisoners because they were going to an ancillary jurisdictional matter that wasn't necessary. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Fellow commissioners, questions? I think this probably kind of came up recently because of, they do have that committee where prisoners can file the complaints, and they found that they weren't being investigated. And there's like no oversight over that, which is kind of an answer. Any questions?
And I do know we do have a legislative committee today for the commission itself. I mean, certainly if it's something you want your staff to look into amending in the next session, we can do that.
Thank you. So I said, this is just a presentation of vote on this, so we will close the item. Next item is item number 7, back on track. Sorry about that. Item 7, discussion and identification of the commission's priorities for the upcoming biannual budget request enhancements for fiscal years 2024 and 2025. I'd like to call the item and ask the executive director for his presentation.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Again, Executive Director Armstrong. We are starting the budget building process. We have had our budget building kickoff with the governor's finance office. There is not a lot changing in the process, but one of the things that we need to do is confirm which enhancement units we would like to build out, and then also understand what the priority is for those different budget enhancements. And so on the handout, I've identified kind of 4 things that we've identified as staff and I've heard the commission identify for enhancements. And an enhancement is anything that we're going to spend more than we have spent in the past. We have to build an enhancement unit, no matter how large or small. So the first one is for the public information officer position and associated costs. You can see some of those costs that are there. We've talked about some potential contracted investigation services for either specialized investigations or surge capacity. There's always a look at the salary parity with similar agencies doing similar work. It is my understanding that the state understands that it has an issue with competitive wages, not only with the private sector, but with local governments. And so that is something that they're looking at in a bigger scope. The commission staff fall into the unclassified service, which is an interesting thing, because if they wave a wand and increase a bunch of the classified service ones, we want to make sure our commission staff is not left behind in that increase. And so our administrative services division folks didn't have many details, except that they are taking a look at state positions as they relate to similar county or city positions. And so we would go through that process as well. There was a salary study, I think a couple sessions ago, that showed that the salaries at the commission should be higher based on what the jobs do. And then the last one is a minor one, and just better internet connectivity for the office there, whether that's getting on a sort of a separate pipeline from the other state agencies that are in the office. Sometimes they do something that just basically drains all our internet, and it is difficult, especially in the times of so much online interaction, with subjects and attorneys and investigations and stuff. So those are the kind of the 4 that we've identified. So at this particular meeting, I'm kind of seeking confirmation from the commission that those 4 make sense, if there's any addition, and then also if there is a prioritization number. We don't have to prioritize quite yet. We can have that. What I anticipate doing is getting this list from you today, and then we go with our administrative services division folks and put a price tag on each of these. That may help prioritize for folks, but I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything in terms of commission priorities for budget enhancements.
Fellow
Madam Chair, I
commissioners,
had a question for the executive director.
please, Vice Chair Duffin.
So on your bullet point under A, you have online training system. So I'm a little bit confused because you said earlier in your presentation that we were going to go to the IFC perhaps, or thinking about doing that for the online training system. So are we going to do that, or are we going to put this in our budget for the commission, for the legislature?
Yeah, we'll have to do both. I think we're still trying to get clarification. The federal grant, when we budget for 2 years at a time. So the next budget that will be approved at the 2023 session will go into calendar year 2025. And so they're looking for clarification of, can the grant monies pay for the online training system for that whole next biennium? There may be 6 months where that would then need to be into our budget to continue that training system. So it was identified as something we wanted as the original enhancement unit, and this recent news about getting the grant money to do it now, because that was a message from the governor's office, do this now, don't wait for the next session. So that's what it'll probably be a minor, if it may be 6 months of that 24-month period that it would be in our budget.
Assuming we get it from the IFC.
Correct.
All right, well, that makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Yeah, I think the enhancements that you identified are the ones that we've been looking at, okay? And when you get to the salary parity, I think the Ethics Commission, their counterpart in judicial is way behind in parity compared to them. I mean, and that's an agency that you can, or an agency that we can identify with that it's very similar to ours, so.
Yeah, and that's the agency that ASD is currently looking at for
Okay.
comparison.
But yeah, in priority, yeah, we definitely need another position here to handle training, and because I think it's going to get to be more, and there's only so many places you can be. We haven't figured out how to clone it yet, so. And as far as prioritizing, I think I put salary parity up there a little bit higher than the contracted services. Because that's important. Right. Any other items? Right, is there a motion to approve the commission's priorities for the next biennium budget?
Yes, I moved that the commission's priorities for the budget building enhancement and prioritization for the next biennium budget should include those recommendations A, B, C, D provided to us by the executive director.
There's a second.
I'll say.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, item 8, commissioner comments. My fellow commissioners have any comments or other things that they would like to add? All right. I don't have any extra comments today, other than to thank the staff for continuing to do a great job, and I'm so glad that we're caught up. But it looks like we're going to be behind again with all these cases, jurisdictional determinations we've been getting and stuff. So, any other comments from my fellow commissioners? No? All right, do we have any members of the public present that would like to comment?
Madam Chair, no members of the public are present here in Las Vegas.
And do we have any on Zoom?
We have one member of the public on Zoom who is not indicated as should have public comment.
Okay, all right. Since there's no public comment, we'll move on to item number 10, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so
I'll make
moved.
that motion.
Right.
I'll second it.
Okay, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right. Motion carries, and so meeting is adjourned. The review panel will, we just are going to consider one case, and the members are myself, Commissioner Towler, and Commissioner Yen. And so we'll just take like a, we'll take a 5-minute break and do
Commissioner
Lowry, sorry, Commissioner Lowry.
I think that, yeah, I
Yeah,
saw my.
yeah,
name,
I know, I know,
but I'm like,
yeah,
I didn't get it.
Sorry, sorry, Commissioner Lowry. You want to take a 5-minute break or just go right into it and then break?
We need to leave. Those of us who aren't involved need to leave.